1 year ago, American voters delivered what can only be described as a political earthquake, fundamentally shifting the direction of this country and soundly rejecting the immigration policies of the previous Biden-Harris administration. Today on Capitol Hill, we saw a vivid, almost theatrical demonstration of just how deep that partisan divide remains. During a high-profile Senate hearing, Texas Senator Ted Cruz pulled no punches, launching into a blistering critique of what he called 4 years of open borders, a period that saw an estimated 12 million illegal crossings and 3 million gotaways. Cruz didn't mince words, arguing that the resulting crime waves in cities like Chicago were not an accident, but a deliberate policy failure. But perhaps the most striking visual wasn't the posters Cruz brought out, it was the empty chairs. Cruz pointed out that the Democratic side of the aisle was completely vacant. No members, no questions, just empty seats. Joining the hearing to provide a reality check from the front lines was Sheriff Roy Boyd of Goles County, Texas, a law enforcement leader heavily involved in Operation Lone Star. When asked by Senator Cruz to contrast the current administration's approach with the last 4 years, Sheriff Boyd's assessment was blunt. It's night and day, Senator. The quality of life for the people of South Texas has drastically improved. We went from arresting smugglers on a regular basis to no longer catching people for smuggling because it's hard to smuggle what Border Patrol won't let across the river. According to Boyd and Cruz, under the new directive of Border Patrol Chief Mike Banks, illegal border crossings have plummeted by a staggering 99%. For the past 6 months, a strict zero-release policy has been in effect, meaning not a single apprehended individual has been released into the U.S. interior. Instead, ICE has ramped up operations, executing over 100,000 arrests of high-level criminals, cartel operatives, and gang captains. Now, let's talk about what this actually means, because there's a lot to unpack here. First, the data presented by Sheriff Boyd cannot be easily dismissed. 4 years, the previous administration insisted that the border could not be secured without sweeping, comprehensive new legislation from Congress. Former President Biden repeatedly claimed his hands were tied. Yet, what we are witnessing right now proves a fundamental truth in American governance, enforcement matters. By simply enforcing existing federal immigration laws, empowering Border Patrol, and halting the mass release of unvetted individuals, the current administration has drastically reduced the influx almost overnight. It turns out you didn't need a new law, you just needed the political will to enforce the ones on the books. For the residents of South Texas and communities nationwide feeling the strain of local resources, this shift is a tangible, welcome relief. However, the political theater on Capitol Hill today highlights a deeper, more worrying dysfunction. The total absence of Senate Democrats from this hearing is a terrible look. By boycotting the proceedings, they didn't just avoid Senator Cruz's sharp rhetoric, they walked away from a critical conversation about public safety and accountability. If the opposition party strategy is to simply look the other way while their activist-based protests for a return to open borders, they are fundamentally misreading the political climate that swept them out of power a year ago. That said, Republicans must also be careful not to take a victory lap too soon. Securing the border is step one. The next, much more complex challenge is dealing with the millions who arrived over the last 4 years. Sheriff Boyd noted that operations have shifted from stopping who is coming in to getting what's already here and getting it out. How the administration handles that massive logistical and legal hurdle will be the true test of his presidency. Senator Cruz closed the hearing hoping America will never again return to an era of deliberate non-enforcement. Looking at the empty chairs across from him today, it's clear the fight over the rule of law is far from over. We'll be right back. What are your thoughts on the 99% drop in border crossings? Do you think the current administration's zero-release model is sustainable long-term, or does it risk overwhelming the detention system?